Welcome back to our channel. Hope you have a great time relaxing. We invite you to embrace the moment by liking the video, sharing your reflections in the comments, and subscribing to journey with us through our latest stories. At 62, I never envisioned I would encounter a moment like this. Life, in its essence, was meant to unfold with a certain rhythm by now. Mornings devoted to nurturing my garden, afternoons immersed in the pages of a book, and evenings shared with my husband, Henry, as we fondly reflected on the moments we've cherished together. But one evening, a whispered exchange transformed everything, stirring doubts about my understanding of the world. The evening began with a corporate gala, elegantly orchestrated by Henry's company. For more than 30 years, he poured his heart into his work, ascending the ranks with a steadfast commitment that spoke volumes. Vincent, his boss, exuded a subtle power, a presence I had only brushed against through courteous exchanges at past gatherings. He was in his mid-60s, tall and distinguished, exuding a quiet confidence that felt both natural and captivating. The gala unfolded within the luxurious embrace of an upscale hotel in downtown Chicago, where grand chandeliers illuminated the room with a soft, inviting light, enveloping the elegantly attired guests in an atmosphere of refined charm. The atmosphere was alive with whispers and laughter, the gentle clink of glasses, and the soothing notes of a jazz band serenading from the corner. Though I didn't have a strong affinity for such gatherings, finding solace in the embrace of home, Henry's insistence led me to don a simple navy blue dress and join him on this evening's journey. At first glance, everything appeared to be beautifully ordinary. As Henry engaged in deep conversations with his colleagues, I found myself lost in delightful exchanges with the other spouses, savoring the warmth of connection around me. Everything changed the moment Richard came closer to me. "Celeste, may I have a moment?" he asked, his voice rich and inviting amidst the lively chatter of the room. I paused, considering his request. A moment? What could it be that Henry's boss desires from me? But I offered a gentle smile and nodded, allowing him to guide me through a quiet side corridor, away from the lively atmosphere of the main ballroom. The atmosphere was more serene in this moment, the echoes of the gala gently receding into the distance. He led me to an intimate lounge, a warm space adorned with soft lighting, a crackling fireplace, and inviting leather armchairs. The atmosphere was charged with a quiet intensity that lingered between them. My heart quickened slightly as I settled into my seat across from him. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything significant," he said, his smile tinged with a hint of uncertainty. "Not at all," I replied, though an intriguing curiosity stirred within me. "What's on your mind?" He sighed, his hands moving together as if trying to grasp the right words. After a moment, he finally spoke. "It's about Henry." At that, I straightened in my chair, a flutter of tension stirring within me. "Is something wrong?" He paused, uncertainty flickering in his eyes. "Not exactly. Yet, there's a truth I believe you ought to hear." The gravity of his words settled in the air, a palpable tension before they were even spoken. His expression held an earnestness that made me pause, his words carrying a weight I hadn't considered before. "Celeste," he continued, his voice soft yet resolute, "I've known Henry for a long time. I have observed him nurture his ambitions, uplift those around him, and cherish his loved ones. Amidst everything, I've come to realize something profound." I took a deep breath. What could it be? He leaned in just a bit, his eyes holding mine with an intensity that felt electric. "He doesn't appreciate you the way he should." The words settled heavily in my chest, a weight I couldn't ignore. My breath hitched, and a surge of protectiveness surged through me. I don't understand," I managed to reply, my voice trembling. "Henry is a wonderful husband. He has always been that way." Richard nodded. "I understand that he is. But tell me, Celeste, when was the last time he genuinely noticed your essence? Not merely as his wife, but as the extraordinary woman you are." I parted my lips to reply, yet found myself at a loss for words. He continued, his voice now a gentle whisper. "I've noticed the way your gaze lingers on him, even when he's lost in his own world. I've seen you linger in the shadows at gatherings like these, as he immerses himself in his tasks. You pour out so much, yet does he ever reciprocate? A tightness gripped my throat. I yearned to argue, to assert that he was mistaken, but a quiet uncertainty stirred within me. I hope I'm not crossing any boundaries, Richard said, leaning back slightly. But sometimes an outsider sees what those inside cannot. I breathed out gently, my thoughts swirling. Richard gazed at me intently, then gave a subtle, understanding smile. Celeste, you deserve to feel valued. His words made me consider something I hadn't allowed myself to acknowledge. For the first time in what felt like ages, a wave of uncertainty washed over me, leaving my emotions in a delicate balance. I remained still, captivated by the moment. Richard's words echoed in my mind, prompting reflections I had long ignored. You deserve to be seen. Had I truly remained in the shadows for so long? I wanted to dismiss his words as just an observation, a kind gesture that missed the mark. Yet, beneath the surface, a part of me recognized the truth in his statement. Henry was a good man, a diligent provider. He had always been steady, dependable. Yet in those hushed moments, the ones that held significance, when had he last truly seen me? When had he last acknowledged the subtle ways I endeavored to keep our life vibrant and rich? The way I folded his shirts just as he preferred. The way I adorned our home with his cherished belongings. The way I remained steadfast beside him through every professional victory, allowing myself to reflect. I cleared my throat, suppressing the emotion that had taken residence within me. Richard. He raised a hand, pausing my words. I don't wish to unsettle you, Celeste. Yet, I found myself unable to remain silent. I exhaled gently, feeling the weight of the moment. Your honesty means a great deal to me. I finally spoke, my voice gentler than I had meant it to be. Henry and I have shared our lives for decades. Marriage encompasses so much more than mere visibility. It's a matter of devotion, of finding a solid ground. Richard nodded, understanding the depth of it all. I know. And I respect that. He leaned forward slightly, his gaze steady and intense. But have you ever paused to consider what you genuinely desire? The question hung in the air, creating a palpable tension between us. What I desired. For so long, I had dedicated myself to understanding Henry's needs, fulfilling the demands of our marriage, and meeting the expectations placed upon me. I had never taken a moment to reflect on my own desires. I released a soft, nervous laugh. Richard, this is quite the intimate exchange for a corporate gala. That brought a smile to his face. I suppose it is. Yet, an inner voice urged me to express it. A pause lingered between us, enveloped by the gentle crackle of the fireplace. He let out a soft sigh as he rose to his feet. I should let you return, he said. I stood as well, my fingers gently smoothing the fabric of my dress, a subtle tremor coursing through me. Yes, Henry will surely be curious about my whereabouts. Richard nodded, yet his expression held an enigmatic quality. Celeste made me promise one thing, though. I tilted my head, curiosity dancing in my eyes. What is that? Please, don't brush aside my words. Take a moment to reflect on it. I paused for a moment, then nodded gently. Very well. He offered me a soft smile before moving aside, inviting me toward the door with a subtle gesture. As I strolled by him, I sensed the warmth of his presence lingering near, the heaviness of our earlier exchange resting on my heart. The gala continued to pulse with life when I made my way back. Henry remained just as I had left him, engrossed in discussion with his colleagues. He remained unaware of my presence initially. I lingered at a distance, observing him. His expression was lively, his hands dancing through the air as he shared his thoughts. It was a part of him I had always cherished, his fervor, his ambition. Yet, Richard's words lingered in my mind. Had Henry ever regarded me with that same intensity? When he finally turned his gaze in my direction, he offered a subtle nod before returning to his discussion. Something within me stirred. Richard had sown a seed, and despite my efforts to dismiss it, I felt it starting to flourish. The journey home was enveloped in silence. Henry sat beside me, his hands steady on the wheel, his eyes locked on the shadowy road ahead. The city lights danced by in a fleeting haze, yet my thoughts drifted far away. Richard's words resonated within me, his voice lingering like a haunting melody I couldn't quite forget. You deserve to be noticed. I caught a glimpse of Henry. He appeared weary, a subtle line of tension etched between his brows. Nearly 40 years of marriage had allowed me to memorize every nuance of his face. The defined contours of his jaw, the delightful crinkle of his eyes when laughter danced across his features, the way his lips would press together in deep thought. Yet, I found myself wondering when he had last truly gazed at me. He cleared his throat, shattering the stillness that enveloped us. Did you enjoy yourself this evening? The inquiry took me by surprise. It was a question he posed after every occasion, every gathering, every dinner, almost as if it were a ritual rather than a true expression of interest. I paused before responding. It was intriguing. He nodded, lost in thought. Good, and just like that, the moment slipped away. I shifted my gaze back to the window, observing the city fade into the distance as we journeyed toward the serene suburbs. Upon our arrival, Henry followed his usual routine, removing his jacket, placing his keys on the counter, and retreating to his office for a final glance at his emails. I lingered in the kitchen for a while, captivated by the vacant space he had just occupied. I felt a complex mix of emotions towards him. It wasn't anger, not really. Henry had always been this way, devoted to his work, unwavering in his routines. He had provided me with a comfortable existence, a life filled with certainty. Yet, Richard's words stirred something deep within me, a feeling I couldn't suppress any longer. I made my way to the bedroom and paused, captivated by my reflection in the mirror. At 62, my once auburn hair now danced with strands of silver. Delicate lines adorned my face, gentle reminders of the journey I had embraced. Yet my eyes remained unchanged. Within them, I discovered a feeling I hadn't recognized in ages. A deep sense of solitude. I had always thought this was simply a part of growing older. This gentle retreat into the shadows, this slow drift into the familiar. But now, for the first time, I questioned if that was truly the case. The following morning, as Henry departed for work, he pressed a soft kiss on my cheek and said, "I'll be home late. There's an important client meeting ahead." I responded with a gentle nod and a soft smile. Everything feels just right. Take care. And then he disappeared. I lingered in the doorway for what felt like an eternity before retreating indoors. Typically, my days are filled with errands, housework, or tending to the garden. Yet today, an unfamiliar restlessness stirred within me. Before I could second-guess myself, I picked up my phone, hesitating before dialing. When Richard answered, I wasn't entirely sure what I wanted to say. "Celeste?" A hint of surprise laced his voice. I inhaled slowly. "Do you have time for a cup of coffee?" There was a pause. And then softly, "Of course." An hour later, I found myself sitting across from him at a serene cafe near the lake. The aroma of roasted coffee beans and warm pastries enveloped the space. Outside, the autumn leaves twirled gracefully in the gentle breeze. Richard's gaze met mine, filled with a soft, inquisitive warmth. "I found myself uncertain about whether your voice would reach me again." As I stirred my coffee, I observed the delicate dance of cream merging with the deep, rich liquid. The thought of calling lingered in my mind, but I hesitated. He nodded, anticipation in his gaze. I let out a slow breath, my mind lingering on your words. His expression held a mystery, and I found myself pausing before finally locking eyes with him. You were right. There was a spark in his gaze, an unspoken depth that stirred something within me. "Celeste, I'm not expressing regret for my journey," I interjected softly. "Henry and I have created a bond that feels profound, something truly authentic. Yet, somewhere in the journey, I seem to have lost the ability to desire something just for me." Richard's expression softened, and I realized the depth of my own emotions for the first time. Now, I find myself uncertain. A hush enveloped us, punctuated solely by the soft murmur of voices in the background. At last, Richard broke the stillness, his voice barely above a whisper. "I simply wish for your happiness." I gazed at him, truly gazed at him. He was a man with no obligation to step into my world, no reason to voice the thoughts he shared, other than the fact that he had glimpsed something within me that I had yet to discover. And in that moment, clarity washed over me. I found myself gazing at Richard from across the intimate cafe table, my fingers gently cradling the warmth of my coffee cup. "All I desire is for your happiness." His words lingered in the atmosphere, weighty yet tender, revealing a truth I had long evaded. For years, I convinced myself that contentment sufficed, that security, stability, and loyalty formed the foundation of a fulfilling life. And indeed, they did. Yet Richard had revealed something profound within me, an essence I hadn't realized was absent. A longing to truly feel. I inhaled deeply, the heaviness of my reflections enveloping me. "Richard, I'm feeling so overwhelmed by everything." His gaze turned gentle. "You don't need to do anything, Celeste. Reflect on what brings you joy. When did you last indulge in something solely for your own pleasure?" I began to speak but paused. When was that moment? I had devoted years to nurturing Henry, ensuring his aspirations, his dreams, and his universe were preserved. I had crafted a life of structure, of familiarity. Yet, where do I fit into this picture? I savored a sip of my coffee, the deep, comforting warmth anchoring me for a fleeting moment. I find myself questioning my identity beyond the confines of my marriage. I found myself surprised by my own admission. Richard offered me a subtle, understanding smile. "Perhaps it's time to explore what lies ahead." I released a soft, trembling laugh, a mix of excitement and apprehension. "It feels a bit daunting, perhaps. But also thrilling, wouldn't you agree?" I remained silent. I couldn't find the words. Because deep within, I understood he was correct. We lingered in quietude for a moment. The world beyond continued its dance, with cars gliding by, laughter echoing in the air, and the gentle breeze caressing the golden autumn leaves. Life moved forward, relentless and unyielding. Yet, perhaps for the first time, I found myself yearning to pause. I placed my cup down gently and locked my eyes with his. "I find myself uncertain about what lies ahead, Richard. Yet, I feel an undeniable urge to embrace life once more." A smile danced at the edge of his lips. "That's all I wished for you to understand." When Henry returned that night, I was already at the kitchen table, waiting. He hardly glanced my way as he placed his briefcase down and loosened his tie. "It had been a long day," he sighed. I could see the weariness in his eyes. I took a moment to observe him, the man with whom I had woven my life, the man I had cherished through the years. And yet, as he moved around the house, an unspoken gap lingered between us, a divide I hadn't realized had deepened over time. I inhaled slowly. "Henry, can we talk?" He hesitated, finally meeting my gaze. "About what?" I swallowed hard. "About us?" His brows knitted together in curiosity. "What about us?" I paused, feeling the weight of the moment, then finally spoke the words that had been stirring within me since last night. "I feel unseen, Henry." He blinked. "What?" "I feel as though I've devoted years to being the partner who uplifts you, who maintains the flow, who ensures that everything in our life remains balanced. And I do love you. Yet, somewhere along this journey, I faded from view." He frowned, clearly taken aback. "Celeste, what is this feeling that has surfaced?" I shook my head. It has lingered within me for so long, I simply never allowed myself to voice it. He settled into the chair opposite me, his hand brushing over his face in a thoughtful gesture. "I had no idea you carried these feelings." I observed him intently. "Did you ever wonder?" He remained quiet. In that instant, I came to a poignant realization. Henry wasn't a bad husband. He wasn't unkind or indifferent intentionally. He had merely believed, as I did, that marriage signified a certain rhythm. That familiarity was sufficient. We no longer felt the need to reach out to one another as we used to. Yet, that absence was not truly living. It lacked the essence of love. Not anymore. What are you saying? He finally asked, his voice laced with hesitation. I take a deep breath. I must rediscover my own essence. His expression dimmed a touch. Are you revealing something about me? I paused, then gently declined with a shake of my head. I find myself uncertain about what lies ahead, Henry. Yet, I am aware that I cannot continue in this way. If we wish for our marriage to endure, a transformation is necessary. He gazed at me, his eyes lingering, and in that moment, after so long, I caught a glimpse of something stirring within him. Understanding. Perhaps there was a moment for us to mend what was broken. Perhaps there wasn't. Yet, for the first time in many years, I felt a stirring within me to discover the truth. Thank you for listening, have fun and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to update the latest stories.